Good morning. This is Muhammad Sulaiman, Assistant Professor of Commerce, working at MVS Government Degree College, Autonomous, Mahbub Nagar. Today, let us learn about consequences of winding up of a company. So, as all of us know, that company is an artificial entity created in the eyes of law. So, it can function through its board of directors, and various decisions that are taken in the company are taken by the board. And when the company is unable to perform, or when the company's life is put to an end, that is called winding up of a company. So, winding up of a company will bring a lot of changes and consequences. So, therefore, today let us learn about the consequences of winding up of a company. Hence, the objectives of the lessons are like this. First of all, we'll be learning about the concept of winding up of a company. Then we will see about consequences of winding up in brief. Then we will see effect of winding up of a company. Then we will see about winding up of insolvent companies. And then we will see about winding up of unregistered companies. And finally, we will learn about offenses in the course of winding up of a company. So let us move on and learn all these things as a part of today's lesson. So as all of us know that the process which puts an end to the life of a company is called winding up. Therefore, winding up of a company can happen in two ways. One is compulsory winding up by the tribunal, and the second one is voluntary winding up by the members or creditors. These two are different processes in which the company's life is put to an end. Compulsory winding up by the tribunal is completed or initiated by the order of the tribunal, wherein the tribunal orders for compulsory winding up of the company, and an official liquidator is appointed for the purpose of completing the proceedings of the winding up process of the company. And in case of voluntary winding up, the winding up process is initiated either by members or by the creditors. If it is initiated by the members will resolve for the purpose of winding up of the company through a resolution, and a decision is taken for the purpose of winding up of the company. And winding up by the members is possible only when the company is solvent, or when the company's solvency position is good. On the other hand, when the company's solvency position is not good, then the winding up is taken up by the creditors. When the solvency position of the company is not okay, the creditors may demand for winding up of the company for the purpose of realizing the dues that they have. Therefore, a company can be wound up in two ways. That is, one is compulsory winding up by the tribunal, and the second one is voluntary winding up by the members or creditors. So, having known about the winding up of the company, let us move on and see the consequences that may come up due to the winding up of the company. As all of us know that winding up affects a number of parties who are related to the company, and the consequences may fall directly on some stakeholders, and the consequences may be faced indirectly by some stakeholders. So first one, we have consequences as to shareholders, then we have consequences as to creditors, then we have consequences as to servants and officers, then we have consequences of proceedings against the company. Then we have consequences as to costs. Then we have consequences as to documents. So all these are broad consequences explained at one place. Let us see the detailed position of consequences of all these things one by one. First of all, let us see the consequences as to shareholders. So, as all of us know, shareholders are those persons who have invested their money, their hard earned money, that is, savings in the company by purchasing the shares, and their investment is in the form of capital in the company, which is used for the beneficial purposes of the company. And as to what a member of the company is liable in case of a winding up of a company is the question. Therefore, the consequences as to shareholders become important here. So, a member of a company is liable and bound to pay the full amount on the shares held by him. So we can understand that this is one of the liabilities that a member may face in the event of winding up of the company. So this liability continues even after the company goes into liquidation. Therefore, the members, that is nothing but the shareholders, will have a liability for the purpose of making payment. During the process of investment in the company, a member is called shareholder or the owner of the company. But in the event of winding up, the meaning is bit different. So, for the purpose of winding up, he is described as a contributor. So, a contributor is a person, so who is liable to contribute to the assets of the company in the event of winding up of the company. And this wide definition may include the holder of any shares which are fully paid up. Since the company is liquidated, the term contributory is used here. So it means a person who is liable to contribute, to the assets of a company, and in the event of being wound up, the company being wound up, and he is liable to pay the amount, or in other words, he is supposed to contribute the amount. So here we have to understand it very clearly that contribution may be present or it may be past also. So it may be a present contribution or it may be a past contribution. So when we talk about the liability of a present contributor, the liability of a person who is a present contributor is limited only to the amount remaining unpaid on the shares held by him. So the number of shares held by him, it is calculated, and the unpaid amount is the liability of the present contributor who is supposed to contribute to the assets of the company which is under the process of winding up. A past contributor can only be called upon to pay some contribution if the present contributor is unable to pay. Sometimes it may happen that the present contributor may not be in a position to pay the amount. So in such a case, the Past contributory can be called upon for the purpose of contributing the amount as the present contributory is unable to pay. So these are the consequences as to shareholders. So apart from these, the shareholders may have different consequences due to the price of winding up of the company. So now let us see the consequences to creditors. So when we talk about the creditors are those persons who are having some amount to be collected from the company, and the very purpose of the winding up of company is nothing but to realize the assets and discharge the liabilities. And then if there is any surplus amount, to pay it off to the shareholders. But in normal circumstances, when the company is solvent, this is possible. When the company is insolvent, I think surplus amount will not be available. Therefore, it is the duty of the liquidator to pay off the liabilities of the company. So there are various kinds of liabilities to a company. Section 324 mentions about the persons who have claims on the company and whatsoever nature may be the claims. The only requisite here is they have to submit the proof of what is due to them from the company. So every liability, whether a present or future, a certain or an uncertain, that is contingent, and all such related liabilities are supposed to be proved. And when these type of liabilities are proved, then section 324 can be applied, and the debts of the company may be paid where a company is held to be a solvent company. So solvency here means the assets are sufficient to pay all its debts and liabilities, as well as the costs of winding up. This is not required to mention. However, the costs of winding up are also to be paid in the event of winding up of a company. So all these things are possible only when the company position is a solvent position. Sometimes it may happen that the company becomes insolvent and goes into liquidation. So the winding up process of the insolvent company will be different. Here, insolvency rules will apply, and only such proofs or claims can be accepted where the creditors are enough ready to submit the proof of the claim, that is what is due to them from the company, and only such claims shall be admitted against the property of the insolvent company. Same is the case with the insolvent person also. Therefore, the rights of various creditors can be classified into rights of secured creditors and rights of unsecured creditors. So there may be two types of creditors here. One is a secured creditor and the other one is unsecured creditor. So secured creditor's position is good here. In relation to the winding up of a company, his position is quite different from an unsecured creditor. So he can stand wholly outside the winding up proceedings of the company unless he abandons his security and joins the position of unsecured creditor. But in normal circumstances, secured creditors will have a claim on the property of the company and will demand for payment of the amount that is due to them. So naturally, a secured creditor will have three alternatives or three different choices before him. First one, he may rely on the security for payment of the due amount and may ignore the process of liquidation altogether. As his amount is secured by some property or his due is secured against some property of the company, once the property is realized, his amount will be paid. Therefore, this is one option wherein he can satisfy himself to collect the amount even in the case of liquidation of the company. Therefore, he may ignore the process of liquidation totally. Or second alternative that is available to him is he may realize the security and prove the deficiency in the winding up of the company. So in this case, he may realize the security or he may value the security and may attempt for proving the deficiency in the winding up of the company. Then one more alternative that he has before him is he may give up the security and prove for the whole amount. So in such a case, he has to submit all the proofs that are available with him for the purpose of collecting the amount that is due to him. So naturally, where the secured creditor proceeds to realize the security, he is liable to pay all the related expenses thereon. So he is supposed to pay the expenses thereon, and such expenses incurred by liquidator for the purpose of preservation of the security before the realization shall be paid by him. And he will realize the amount, and the amount can be collected by disposing of the security or asset that is available in the company. Then we have rights of unsecured creditors. So unsecured creditors will also have a right to realize their money, but after secured creditors. So all debts due to unsecured creditors are to be treated equally and shall be paid. And where the list of claims is to be settled by the liquidator, he has to make arrangement for making payment for different things. So whatever the assets are available at the disposal of the liquidator, he has to dispose the assets and make payment in the following preferential order. So he may have some overriding preferential payments. He may have cost of liquidation to be paid, and preferential payments he may have. Then debenture holders secured by a floating charge. Then he might have unsecured creditors, and if it is a surplus, then balance returned to the contributors. So first of all, he has to pay the overriding preferential payments. Now we may have a doubt what is overriding preferential payments. So the overriding preferential payments that are possible in the process of winding up of a company as per the provisions of the Act are workmen dues. If there are any dues to be paid to the workmen, it has to be settled first. Naturally, there may be some dues to the workmen by the company when they are working. So the various dues that are to be paid by the company to the workmen naturally will have to be paid, and any kind of amount that is to be paid to the workmen in the form of salary, in the form of any other things like wages outstanding, in the form of any amount that is like gratuity and on. So all such payments have to be cleared first. Then debts due to secured creditors, to the extent such debts rank under various provisions of the Act. So all these things shall be paid in priority. And if at all any other debts are there which do not fall under this category shall have to be paid, and the payment shall be made in full unless the assets are insufficient to make such payments. Then normal rule of winding up is the secured creditors are secured and they shall remain outside the purview of winding up process, and they are paid on a priority basis, and the workers' dues are to be paid in the same manner. And important point that we have to remember here is rights of secured creditors prevail over the rights of other creditors. This is mentioned earlier also. When we talk about a secured creditor and unsecured creditor, then secured creditor will rank first. Therefore, the rights of the secured creditors prevail over the rights of other creditors. Hence, the secured creditors are to be paid first, and the workers would have the next claim to be paid, and the claims of income tax authorities and other authorities have to be settled, and the workers' dues like contribution to the provident fund, etc., have to be cleared first. Then later on preferential payments will be made. So the section 327 of the Companies Act will explain the provisions of preferential payments which are to be paid in a priority over and above all other types of debts, and such payments are called preferential payments. It may however be noted that such payments are made after paying the secured creditors and the costs of winding up. So once the secured creditors are paid and costs of winding up are cleared, then preferential payments can be made. So workmen dues and secured creditors dues which rank in the priority have to be cleared over and the other debts, and after clearing these only the preferential payments can be made. So if we talk about the example of preferential payments, there are many examples of preferential payments. For example, all taxes, revenue, cess and rates due from the company to the central government or state government or to a local authority are treated as preferential payments. The only condition is the amount should have become due and payable within a period of 1 year before the winding up. So if the amount has become due and payable before the period of 1 year from the process of winding up, it will be treated as preferential payment. And the second preferential payment could be the wages and salaries of an employee in respect of services rendered to the company due for a period of 1 year before the winding up. And in case of any compensation, as discussed earlier, to be paid to the workmen under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, it shall also be paid. And the rule position here is it should not be more than rupees 2 lakhs in case of one claimant. So the amount of compensation to be paid to one workman shall not be more than rupees 2 lakhs. So apart from this, there may be some other preferential payments like the holiday remuneration that is accrued and payable to the employees if they work on holidays. And in case of death of any claimant or an employee, or in case of the termination of employment before the winding up, his legal heir or any person who is eligible to draw the amount shall be paid. And all the amounts due in respect of contribution payable by the company as employer but is not paid before the winding up or reconstruction shall be paid. And all amounts such as compensations shall be paid as discussed earlier. So any amount that is payable in the form of compensation on account of death or disablement of any employee under the Workmen's Compensation Act 1923 shall be paid, which has become due before the process of initiating the winding up of the company. And all related payments that are made for the purpose of welfare of the employee or a workman, like provident fund, pension fund, or a gratuity fund, and any other fund that is supposed to take up the welfare of the employees shall be paid in full, and this must be treated as a preferential payment. Therefore, the consequences as to creditors are many, and in case of creditors, we can classify the position of creditors into secured creditors and unsecured creditors. And secured creditors' rights will prevail over the rights of unsecured creditors. Therefore, secured creditors shall be settled, preferential payments shall be made, and all these consequences are to be faced by the creditors in case of winding up of the company. Then we have one more consequence as to servants and officers of the company. Once the winding up order is passed by the tribunal, it operates as a notice of discharge to the employees and officers of the company, except when the business of the company is continued. Sometimes the business of the company is continued till the process of liquidation of the company. So the winding up process will continue, and the operations of the company will continue due to some requirements of the company till the finishing of the production and sale of the final output. In such a case, where the business of the company is continued, then the consequences that are to be faced by the employees and officers will have some more time. So the same principle will be applicable in case of the voluntary winding up of the company by its members. So where there is a contract of service for a particular period, an order for winding up will amount to wrongful discharge, and damages will be allowed for breach of contract of service. So sometimes this is possible. Few companies will enter into the contract of service for a particular period with the employees. So in such a case, the termination is not so easy, and the termination shall happen in that case with the proper notice, that is a 3 months notice or 6 months notice, and with some compensation. So in such a case, the damages shall be paid by the company to the employees or workmen who are taken on board for the purpose of breaking the contract of service or breaking the bond of service between the employee and the company. So in such a case, the consequences to the employees and consequences to the servants will be different in case of contract of service signed and in case where there is no contract of service signed. So these are the consequences to servants and officers, and there may be some consequences to the company also. So when a winding up order is made, an official liquidator has been appointed or a provisional liquidator is appointed. No legal suit or proceeding can be commenced, and no pending suit or legal proceeding can be continued against the company. So this is one consequence in case of a winding up of a company. And in case of voluntary winding up, the tribunal may stop proceedings against the company if it thinks okay. Therefore, it may be noted that law does not prohibit proceedings being taken by the company against others, including directors or officers or other servants of the company. Therefore, the consequences of proceedings against the company are also possible to be faced by the company, and there may be consequences in the form of legal suits and proceedings, so which may commence before the process of initiating the winding up. So once the winding up order is made and a provisional or official liquidator is appointed, then no legal proceedings or suits can be accepted. Then we have consequences as to costs, where the basic objective of winding up is to dispose the assets and pay the liabilities. And in some situations, it may be possible that the assets of the company are sufficient to dispose the liabilities totally. But where the assets of the company are insufficient to satisfy the liabilities or to make payment to the liabilities totally, the tribunal may make an order for payment out of the assets. It may happen out of the assets. Payments such as the costs, charges, and expenses incurred in the process of winding up shall be paid by selling the assets. And while making such payments, the tribunal may determine the order of priority in which such payments are to be made. If these payments are made next to the overriding preferential payments, then these costs will be paid then and there itself. Therefore, there may be consequences as to the costs, charges, and expenses that are incurred in the process of winding up also. On the other hand, there may be consequences as to documents also, wherein A company which is under the process of winding up, whether by the tribunal or voluntarily, must disclose this fact to the outer world. So the fact must be made known to all the related parties. So the fact must be made clear to all the parties who are dealing with the company, maybe creditors, shareholders, investors, various stakeholders like tax authorities, government authorities, bankers, financiers, debenture holders, and so on. So all these people shall be made known regarding the winding up of the company, so that every person is aware and alert to complete the proceedings in the process of winding up of the company. Therefore, every document issued in the name of company, whether it is an invoice for purchase or an order for purchasing the goods and so on, must contain a statement that the company is being wound up. So where a company is being wound up, all documents of the company and of the liquidators shall, as between the contributors of the company and the liquidators of the company, and all the facts and matters related therein shall be recorded and shall be paid. Suppose the order of winding up is given by the tribunal, any creditor or contributory may demand for inspection of books or papers of the company, subject to the provisions or rules that are there in force. So in this situation, it will become a consequence as to documents. When the affairs of the company have been completely wound up, it is about to be dissolved. Its books and papers and those of liquidator may be disposed in such a manner as the tribunal directs. And this applies only to the winding up of a company by the tribunal. And the situation in case of members voluntary wind up, the documents may be disposed of according to the special resolution taken by the company. And in case of creditors voluntary winding up, the manner directed by the committee of inspection shall be followed for the purpose of disposing of the documents. Therefore, the consequences as to the communication of winding up of the company and preserving of documents is also important in case of winding up of a company. So in case of tribunal, the instructions given by the tribunal will be followed. In case of voluntary winding up by the members, the decision taken in the special resolution will be followed. In case of the winding up by the creditors, the directions given by the committee of inspection will be followed. Therefore, there are consequences as to documents also. So having known the consequences as to documents, let us move on and see the effect of winding up. So there may be an effect of winding up on other transactions of the company also, because it is a very big process winding up and will impact many stakeholders and related parties. Therefore, there may be a possibility of fraudulent preference, and there may be a possibility of a situation where voluntary transfer of shares is avoided and floating charge is also avoided and disclaimer of onerous property is done. So first of all, let us know about fraudulent preference. So according to law, the transfer of property or payment made by a person who is unable to pay his debts naturally in favor of a creditor with a view to giving him a preference over other creditors is regarded as fraudulent preference. So this is to be understood where the person is made payment by giving him preference. Actually, this should not have been given as per the provisions of the law, and the rules of insolvency as to fraudulent preference are applicable to the winding up of a company. Therefore, if such payment is made in a fraudulent manner, within 3 months an insolvency petition is presented against him and he is adjudicated as insolvent, then the transaction becomes void. The transaction becomes void and this is treated as a fraudulent preference. So the proof of fraudulent preference has to be submitted, and fraudulent preference cannot be inferred from a mere suspicion or doubt, but should be based on some legal evidence. So the motive in the mind of the company acting by its directors was to prefer one creditor to the other, and it is necessary to prove that the company had an intention in the mind to give preference to that creditor particularly. Therefore, fraudulent preference cannot be inferred from mere suspicion but should be based on some legal evidence that has to be proved. Therefore, the burden of proof lies on the liquidator to prove the fraudulent preference. To prove the fraudulent preference, the liquidator has to work out and prove the preference given over the other creditors. So again I repeat, for fraudulent preference there must be an intention to prefer a creditor while making a payment. Then we have avoidance of voluntary transfer. So any transfer of property or goods made by a company will be void if it has been made within 1 year before the presentation of petition for passing a resolution for voluntary winding up. So this is not applicable to natural course of transactions that happen in the business, that is ordinary transactions, but is applicable to any special transfer in favor of any other person before the filing of petition of the winding up. Then we have avoidance of floating charge. So section 332 prevents an insolvent company from creating a floating charge. So if the company has done, then it is not permitted. It provides that where a company is being wound up, a floating charge on the undertaking or property of the company created within 12 months shall be treated as invalid. Therefore, the company that has created a floating charge should not have any intention of going into winding up. Therefore, the debts secured by such charge becomes an unsecured debt. Then we have a disclaimer of onerous property. The liquidator of a company may, with the leave of the tribunal, get rid of onerous property by disclaiming it. The object here is to save an insolvent company's assets from further future losses. Therefore, it may include some lands, shares, or stocks of a company. So, this is one more effect of winding up of a company. Then we have winding up of insolvent companies, where Section 325 of the Company Act applies to winding up of the company which cannot pay all its debts. So all persons who are entitled to prove for and receive the dividends out of the assets of the company are eligible to make such claims. Then we have winding up of unregistered companies. Section 374 defines an unregistered company as any partnership, association, or company having more than 7 members at the time of filing the petition for winding up. So, say for example, if it has 8 members, then that company is called unregistered company. Then we have offenses in the course of winding up of the companies, offenses by officers of companies in liquidation, then offenses for falsification of book, it is treated as penalty, wherein the person doing it is held liable. Then fraud penalty for officers for doing some frauds. Then liability where proper books of accounts are not kept. This is also possible. Sometimes proper books are not kept. It is also treated as an offense and the people doing it are liable. Then liability for fraudulent conduct of business. For doing some frauds in the business also it is treated as one liability in the course of winding up process, and the person involved in it is treated as liable. So these are the consequences in the case of winding up of the company. Thank you.